On this journey, I'm trying to answer three questions. The first one is, how do you define diversity? So how do you define diversity?
Diversity just is.
Hmm.
I mean, there are people all over the world that have different ways and cultures, and that's true in this country too. People come from many different places. There's cultural ways. There's diversity in who we are in terms of ethnicity, culture, age, abilities. There's neuro developmental differences and diversity. There's diversity in sexuality, sexual orientation, folks that are trans, folks that don't identify with either gender. And I mean, it just goes on and on and on. So I see and acknowledge all of that. Even within our indigenous communities, there's 500 different nations. So people will say, oh, what is, indigenous spirituality? Well, there's many different ways, many different beliefs and understandings and origin stories. So all of that is part of diversity. There's diversity in terms of experience, diversity in terms of what people have been exposed to, and economics. It's all part of it in my way of thinking.
Yeah. And then,
One other thing I would just say about that, since we're talking about art and culture also, is that our natures are different. Some of us are really extroverted, some of us are introverted, some of us are really see and experience the life in terms of like sounds, some of us vision. There's just so many different ways that we are as creative people on the planet. And I think of everybody as creative. But that's a really big part of how we experience things, is what sense is like ultra highlighted in our way of viewing the world and experiencing and expressing ourselves.
so my second question I'm trying to on this wayfinding project is, diversity must be built, but is it being pursued for the wrong reasons?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And it's really only newer in this region and maybe other regions similar to this, because there's nothing particularly new about this conversation if you're on the coast, as you know, and in other places like Florida or places that are really culturally alive. And so in these areas, you really can see people just kind of grabbing at it to try to say that they are doing that thing.
Yes.
And authenticity matters, and people's heart matters. And
Mhm.
I really believe that the biggest thing we can do is be present with one another, truly present.
Mhm.
And that can break down many different things. But are we willing to listen to one another, talk to each other,
Mhm.
not just think about what we're going to say next, but be there. And
Right. Yeah.
yeah, put down the devices, just be in each other's space authentically. And that's scary for a lot of corporations. It's scary for different entities where they're trying to protect themselves. So how do you have really honest conversations about things that have occurred when they're afraid they're going to get sued? You know,
Right. Yeah.
so it's like tricky, and you have to mask up to walk in the door. And do people know how to see people from many different perspectives?
Mhm. Yeah.
Uh, I don't know, it's a lot. But
And I,
yeah, I don't believe in, like after Brianna was killed, all of these different statements, like which organizations put up a statement, which ones didn't. If they did, does it mean anything based on their record? Yeah. One of the other things I wanted to say when you were mentioning opening up the doors, part of how I always saw Arch Reach was we are opening the doors to the Kentucky Center, but we are also walking in the doors of the community.
mm,
So Arch Reach had a presence in community centers. Every day of most weeks, there was an artist teaching somewhere in, 20 or 30 different community centers across town. And myself and other folks there from the center would go into the different community centers. And there's a way that it means something different, not just pick up the phone and call somebody, but to walk in a door. and
Right.
to say, this neighborhood is not terrifying to me. I can walk into this neighborhood. I can be part of this community here. And I would like it if you would like to be part of this community over here and have that movement start,
Mhm.
because so much people do feel like, where they live is the only place. And you have to be willing to walk in the doors of the same folks where you want them to walk in your door. It's not authentic, and it's not a true sharing of culture and space if you aren't able to do both.
For the third question that I'm trying to answer, and uh, I don't live in Louisville, but I like this question is: do you feel like you belong in the city of Louisville? Like, do you really feel like you belong there, like as a part of the community, or has the city embraced you? That kind of thing.
This is a really great question for me, because when I was growing up in Louisville, I never felt like I belonged anywhere,
Mm,
ever, ever, ever. And I left, and when I was living in the Bay Area, I felt like I belonged.
mm,
I felt like I belonged in Florida. I felt like I belonged even in Cuba. I mean, there's so many places I've gone where I just felt like I could walk in anywhere and it was like, yeah, I'm here. It's okay.
mhm,
But I never felt that in Louisville. And if my mother hadn't lived here and I wanted to be around her as she continued to age, I wouldn't have come back to this place.
mm,
And I was thinking about how much I love the rain here and
mhm,
the storms and the trees. And I feel like I belong when I walk out into a rainstorm.
mhm,
But if I have to walk into an event like in certain parts of Louisville, no.
mhm,
I always felt like I belonged in Arts Reach,
mhm,
which is why I loved it so much. So yes, there, whenever we were having an event, a meeting, a training, or, all of the things we did, I felt like I could walk in that door and sit down. But part of that was because I was defining the culture. you know?
That's a big part. Yes, yeah.
And I hope that I was helping other people to have that same feeling like they belonged there.
Mhm,
It wasn't just I was the only one in a room by myself, but many people could walk in that door and feel like they had that same feeling of belonging.
mhm,
But Louisville's a hard place to feel like you belong, especially when you're, you know, wired up different, like I have always felt myself to be. And people don't know how to identify me. They don't know who I am.
right.
And, you know, but my mother is 88 now, and she always told me, Julia, just walk in and sit down. Everybody has the ability to walk in and sit down,
Mm,
because she knew I always felt like out of place everywhere. And she was
mhm,
like, you don't even have to do anything else. Just walk in the room and sit somewhere. And that's helped me in life, to kind of break down some of that. Like, it doesn't really matter what other people think. I can feel my own self that I do belong. I was made exactly as my ancestors wanted me to be. And for that, we all have that.